This is the Cubs Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Chicago Cubs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Cubs Postcast here on the Locked On Cubs YouTube channel. My name is Joe George. You find me on all social media platforms at Joe George Radio, and this series is tied at 1 game apiece as the Cubs get shut down. The lineup did nothing in this game for the Cubs. They were not able to contribute in any way, honestly. They really only had one opportunity to score when Seiya Suzuki was on second base. We'll talk about what we saw from the lineup, how things can get better potentially in game 3, even though they've struck out, 24 times now, I think is the number, through 2 games. It's just been abysmal for the most part through 2 games in this wild card series against the Padres. We'll talk about what we saw from Shota Imanaga, the decision by Craig Counsell to have Shota face Manny Machado, and we'll talk more about what to look for in tomorrow's game. But we will start off today with our turning point of the game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
So the turning point, there's a million options here, right? It's when you've got, Suzuki on second base and you don't score any runs is really where it is. But it's when Machado, you could say, hits the home run to make it 3-0. That could be the turning point. But the argument against that, honestly, as I'm even talking it out here, is just that you didn't score any runs. The Cubs didn't go out there and their lineups didn't perform in this game. So, look, I hate and we'll talk about Craig Counsell and his decision-making process here, but 3 runs is a number that the Cubs lineup should be able to match and pass. Now, the Padres bullpen is dominant, right? We saw everything through these first 2 games of what they've paid for. Mason Miller probably threw the most spectacular pitch I've ever seen today, 104 miles an hour on the corner. That's why they went out and got him at the deadline. It's why a guy that was, mentioned amongst Cubs fans, at least, of someone that you would like to see this organization go and get. But Dylan Cease was carving you up too. The Cubs haven't really had much of an answer for the pitching in the first 2 games of this series. Like, yes, they got to Pivetta a little bit or enough in game 1. You got the victory. But today, it's a lot of swing and miss. And specifically, a guy like Crow-Armstrong, he's 0 for 6 in this series with 5 strikeouts. And I was watching this in my common area at work, and I'm talking to my coworkers, and it's just like they're throwing him high fastballs. And I was told them, I was like, they're going to throw some kind of curveball or change up low and in, and he's going to swing at it. And I think that first at bat, he was taken a little bit here and there, but in the end, I feel like they're not even throwing strikes to PCA, and it's not all on him. Like, he's obviously not the only guy who's responsible for the Cubs lineup faltering in the way that they have, and I don't think anyone should also be surprised. Like, we've seen the Cubs struggle against guys who can put up big strikeout numbers this year, and the fact that they won yesterday, striking out more than 10 times, even though they're the best record in baseball at that, does feel like a little bit of a miracle. But another performance again today where you strike out 11 times. The lineup just they're not getting deep into counts. They're not walking. They're not hitting. The lineup has just not produced enough in these first 2 games. Now, it doesn't mean the series is over. You've obviously got a game 3 tomorrow. You're facing Yu Darvish. I think it's kind of fitting that, as much as we discussed Owen Casey this year, that the season potentially could be on the line as you get ready to face the guy that you traded for Owen Casey to the San Diego Padres. But facing Yu Darvish, like, I feel better about. I know some of the numbers of the current guys on the roster aren't particularly good, but I think you can get to him. But the key to tomorrow's game, and what you can't see what happened in these first 2 games of the series, but specifically I would say in this game, is you can't just let the Padres, let Yu Darvish get deep into this game. The deeper he goes into a game, the harder it's going to be for the Cubs to win. And that's what we saw play out in this one, is their bullpen, the Padres bullpen, came in and they just dominated in a way that's, even though yesterday was incredible for the Cubs bullpen, like, they went out and performed to their highest of abilities, coming in after Matthew Boyd, from Daniel Palencia all the way through Keller. But I do feel like a sense of jealousy, because I'm not 100% confident that the Cubs bullpen could replicate their game 1 performance, but I am very confident that the Padres can replicate that performance that we saw today and what we saw a little bit yesterday, and they can replicate that tomorrow. And guys are going to be available. Like, it's not going to be a question of, the guys who pitched in yesterday's game and today's for the Padres, if they're going to be available tomorrow. Those guys are all going to be out there. So maybe you can, catch a break and they'll be a little tired. But at the end of the day, for the Cubs to win this game tomorrow, they have to just be better. It's really that simple. You have to take pitches. You have to draw walks. You have to get guys on base. I saw Sam and Matt, tweeting and talking about bunting and walking and playing small ball. And we saw small ball work yesterday for the Cubs. You're moving guys over. Matt Shaw lays his first bunt down of the season yesterday, his first successful sack bunt of the season yesterday. But to even be able to do those moments, to be even able to steal bags like we saw Dansby Swanson do in the first game of the series, guys got to get on base. And the Cubs just didn't do enough of that in this game. They only end up with 4 hits in this game. I mean, the two teams have combined for, I think it's 10 and 11 hits. So it's not like the offense has been incredible for either team, obviously, through 2 games, but the Cubs can do more. And you're seeing the guys that you need to come through are the ones who are kind of faltering right now. We spent a lot of time on these shows talking about how Michael Busch has been heating up, and he's had some hard contact. Like, that's the positive from today's game, is Michael Busch looks like he's close. It would not shock me if Michael Busch takes Yu Darvish deep on the first pitch of the game tomorrow, because he's come close in these first 2 games. Nico goes 1 for 4, but Ian Happ, who had been heating up, he goes 0 for 4 in this game. We saw Kyle Tucker. I think there are some positives from Tucker, obviously having the 1 hit, but even, that first out of the game, driving the ball to left field, it is a good indicator for Tucker. It's not just a rollover. Not that I think we should be expecting Kyle Tucker to come in here and save the day, frankly, because he's a guy who hasn't had much postseason success the last 3 seasons. But Tucker can, I think is showing a little bit of signs. But the problem is the signs are, you got 1 game. It all comes down to tomorrow. Like, you might not have, another 5-game series to try to keep getting Kyle Tucker right. Seiya Suzuki, doesn't hit home run today, but does have another hit. He's obviously been on a heater. Carson Kelly goes 0 for 2 in this one. PCA we just discussed at the start of the show, just all the strikeouts. I think the question now becomes, which we'll get to after the break, is do you do something different tomorrow? Do you change, something up for this game? For Craig Counsell, I think going with Kittredge as the opener was the smart decision. He was able to get out of that first inning without giving up major damage. I mean, it felt like a replica of the first game of the series where the Padres had the opportunity to put on a bunch of runs, or at least a couple runs, and you're able to get out of that with only allowing 1 run. And then you bring in Shota Imanaga, who's, he's good for the most part. But the thing that's been a problem for Shota Imanaga all year long has been the home run ball. And I know he's a fly ball pitcher, but leaving him in to face Manny Machado, I think is a questionable decision at best. Craig Counsell, said yesterday in the press conference that he just, it's going to be questioned because of the result, which of course, but he just, trusted Shota Imanaga in that moment. And I get why. He's been the Cubs' best pitcher, arguably the last 2 years combined, not this season. And that's what he's here for. Like, he's here to be on the mound to face the best guys. But you made the decision before the game to not have him face the top of the order. So why didn't you make the change with Machado coming back up? And in the end, does it matter? No, because the lineup didn't score. But I do think that's a questionable decision by Craig Counsell, and one that he's going to be criticized for, and I think rightfully so. But, if the Cubs would have lost 3-2, maybe I would feel a little more heated about it. But again, the lineup is ultimately the thing that does the Cubs in this game. All right, we'll take a break here. When we get back, we'll discuss this game more. We'll take your questions and comments here in YouTube, and the question of what do you do next? What does game 3 look like for the Chicago Cubs? It's all coming up next year on the Locked on Cubs postcast. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. And that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast and easy and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. plus all the fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. So it might be your last chance of the season tomorrow to see the Chicago Cubs play at Wrigley Field. So if you want to get tickets for it, I would definitely be checking out Gametime right now. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download the Gametime app today. Today's show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401k properties, 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does all the heavy lifting, and you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, before we get to what you'll be talking about, which is what tomorrow looks like for the Cubs, let's get to some of the comments here in the chat. So Indo says, I'm afraid for tomorrow. Yeah, this is why playoff baseball is the best, but it would have been awesome to get the win today and just be able to talk about going to take on the Milwaukee Brewers and having basically double home games, because we know what it looks like there in Milwaukee with Cubs fans. But unfortunately, we got to wait at least one more day, hopefully one more day, to see that come to fruition. James says here in the chat, Darvish has been bad this season. If Cubs have a killer's mentality, and if they show some urgency, they should, and they can win tomorrow. I do very much agree with that. I think the Cubs can get the best of Yu Darvish. I don't really care about past numbers and what it looks like and what Ian Happ or Kyle Tucker or these guys have done in the past. To me, all that matters is what happens tomorrow. And again, what matters tomorrow is taking some pitches, trying your best not to strike out a lot or as much in this game. And you just got to get guys on base and try to force some chaos at this point. Try to get PCA on base, let him be out there and make the other team nervous. Find a way to get runners in scoring position again for Nico Horner or for Kyle Tucker in this lineup. You got to find a way to get guys on tomorrow. Jay Owens in the chat says very disappointed in the offense today. Yeah, I think that's totally fair at this point to talk about being disappointed in this team and the way that they performed. The offense has not been, I think we're hoping that what we saw in the last handful of games in the season would carry over. And I think I would say in yesterday's game, it did back-to-back home runs. So it's two guys coming through there, and then Nico with the sac fly. But it's just been a lot of strikeouts so far through two games here against the Padres. All right, before we end today's show, we'll take a little bit of time here to talk about what you'll be talking about after this game.
This is what you'll be talking about.
So Jameson Taillon, all by all reports, the Cubs haven't officially announced it, but the reports coming out is that Taillon's going to be on the mound tomorrow. I do feel good about that. I mean, he's been pitching really well recently, so I do feel confident with Jameson Taillon on the mound tomorrow. Not confident to guarantee a win or anything like that. I'm not really in that business anyways, but he's pitched really well as of late, so I do think that helps the Cubs. And again, I think Yu Darvish has not had the best season this year up to his standard of the past, at least. So I think he's gettable. But if the Cubs are going to win tomorrow, it's going to be getting to Darvish is going to be the key. To win this game, you have to put up 2 or 3 runs against Yu Darvish before this bullpen comes in and shuts you down. If you don't, you at least have to take a million pitches and force him out of this game as quickly as possible. And I think for Taillon, I want to see him go as deep into the game as he can. really would love to see a very similar formula to what we saw in game one, where obviously those guys were not really used in this game today, but, be able to go Palencia, Pomerantz, who I think clearly is the more trusted lefty for the bullpen right now for the Cubs, hand it back to Kittredge for a third game in a row. I'm fine with, and then go to Keller to hopefully close this thing out, get the victory, and head to Milwaukee. So what could they do different? What will they do different? I'm fascinated by it. James says here in the chat, please move Hapless down the order. I mean, the thing with Ian is he has been hitting the ball much better as of late. Obviously, this series hasn't been strong for him. I don't think we're going to see that. I don't think we're going to see Ian Happ. But if we were going to, this is how. From Jay. Put Mo Baller, Moises Ballesteros at DH. If they're going to move – so I don't think Ian Happ can't move down. I think he has to move out. I would be shocked if we saw a lineup that didn't have Kyle Tucker in it tomorrow. Now, Ballesteros, I love watching him play. I think he's been really good this year when he's been up with the Cubs. I'm really impressed with him and what he's going to be for a long-term piece of this team. But the only way you're going to see Ballesteros in the lineup is if Kyle Tucker is not in it, it seems like. I don't think he's ready to play right field, or we would have seen it. Also, they talked about this on the broadcast, which was tough to listen to at times. But Seiya Suzuki, his hot streak here is happening while he's in right field. Baseball players are weird. We all know that. If there is something about him feeling more comfortable right now with playing, in the field and then hitting the lineup, frankly, I would probably default to that because he's been your best hitter besides Nico Horner over the last 5 or 6 games. He said 5 home runs or whatever to 6 home runs in 5 games coming in today. So as much as I would like to see Ballesteros play in this game, I don't think we're going to see a change. I don't think we're going to see Ian Happ move down in the lineup. I think Craig Counsell is going to tomorrow roll out the exact same lineup that we saw today. I do not think there will be a single change. I think we will see Tucker at DH, Suzuki and right, Happ and left. Your infield will be the same. Shaw is going to be at third. It's not going to be like a Willie Castro situation or anything like that. The only thing you could talk me into not playing PCA, but are you going to put Willie Castro in center field? Like, that to me doesn't make sense. You're going to put Alcantara in center field? That doesn't make sense. So that's the only one where, like, would you take one of these guys out of the lineup because he's 0 for 6 with 5 Ks? That could be an option, but I think Craig Counsell is just, whether it's good or bad, is going to roll out the exact same lineup tomorrow. And frankly, unless Kyle Tucker is actually still dealing with something, and it doesn't really, to me, from what we've seen, doesn't really look like it. It looks okay. This is going to be the lineup for the Cubs throughout the postseason, whether that ends tomorrow or they make a run into November. This is the crew that Craig Counsell is going to be rolling out there. So the things to be looking for outside of that, more specifically, would be how aggressive is he with Jameson Taillon. If Taillon is struggling in any way, I think he will turn to the bullpen much earlier in this game. I think he will be really quick to pull him out. And even though it will raise other questions about how you get through this game with Ray pitching today, obviously, like I would guess that we will see, a quick trigger if things do not go well from you. Have to. Tomorrow you have to manage, well, because your season depends on it. Like, it's tomorrow is win or go home. And it's as a fan, it's nerve-wracking, but it's also exciting in a way that at least the Cubs are in this position. So we'll see how it goes. TR says here, pitch Boyd tomorrow. Who cares? Boyd might care. But it is that kind of game where, like, anyone that can go will go tomorrow. Jay says it's not pitching, it's the lineups. I agree, but I don't think Craig Counsell, I would be shocked if we see any monumental change. I guess the only thing would be is if Tucker, if you feel like Ballesteros were to give you a better option, in this game than Tucker, you could see that, but I think we would have already seen that play out in the first 2 games of this year. So I'm expecting same old Cubs tomorrow. So I wouldn't be holding out your hopes for a big time change as well. Before we go, we're going to quickly see if we can run through this real quick. So tomorrow's game, this is the game plan. Okay. This is what you should know. If you're listening to this tomorrow morning, you already know the answer, but here for the people listening live and listening quickly, the Cubs will play at 2:00 tomorrow if the Yankees and the Reds win. They will play at 4:08. If the Yankees and the Dodgers win, they will play at 5:08. if the Red Sox and the Reds win, and they will play at 6:38 tomorrow if the Red Sox and the Dodgers win. So we will wait and see how this plays out today. I'm going to call my shot here in the middle of a baseball game and put myself in bad take category potentially very quickly. I think the Cubs play at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So a game plan for us tomorrow will be the same as well. Tomorrow, unless they get the 2 o'clock game, Matt and Sam will go live, and then I will go live immediately after. Their recap is already here on the YouTube channel. They went live right after the game today. So thank you guys for watching. We will be back with you tomorrow for hopefully not the last postcast show of the 2025 season. Thank you all for hanging out with us today, whether it's here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts on Apple and Spotify. Thank you all for listening and watching.